Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mystery Sports Podcast. And today it's all about Champions League football. We return to European football now, and it is the business end, really, isn't it? Now of the Champions League, we've got quarter-final action. We've got four huge games over tonight and tomorrow night. They should be very entertaining. I think a lot of goals will be scored in these games, and I also think that we will see the true top teams in European football this weekend. Not this weekend, this midweek in terms of Champions League action. And if we kick it off straight away, we'll go through a couple of the fixtures. So you've got, tomorrow's fixture, Paris Saint-Germain hosting Liverpool, who travel away to France. Liverpool getting battered off Man City in the FA Cup 4-0. Absolutely humbling performance there. And PSG, we know how good they are. Arguably the best team in the world, winning the Champions League last season and quite comfortably winning the Champions League last season. Will they get into the semi-finals? I'm going to think they will across two legs. I think PSG will be too hot to handle for Liverpool. I think they will go out the game with so much energy and they will just constantly be on Liverpool, especially with the first leg being in France. So, in terms of a Liverpool's perspective, I'm not sure in what they could do to try and win this game. Probably, I will talk a little bit more about this when I predict the scores for the first legs in a second. But I think they've got to just stop PSG from running away with the lead in the first leg. Tonight we've got probably the biggest game. They're all quite big games, but this is probably the one. Two European giants going ahead at the Bernabeu today. Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich. This is a game where it's incredibly difficult to call. Who knows what will happen in this game? And then tomorrow night again, we have Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid, and an all Liga affair in this tie. What will happen really in this game? It's another situation where they played each other last weekend and Barcelona won 2-1. Marcus Rashford, a little lone watch for United fans, that he was the standout performance really, and he was the one who kind of provided a threat for Barcelona, probably giving help as well with Atletico getting a man sent off. However, Barca won 2-1. But it's one of those games where anything can happen. Either side could win. Barca could win at home and Atletico could win away, and it go to extra time and then go to penalties, something like that. And then tonight we've got the only English side, the second English side, should I say, in the competition, Arsenal against Sporting Lisbon heading to Portugal. I think the whole of football, bar Arsenal fans, are wanting Sporting to win this game. I think, I want Sporting to win this game. I don't like Arsenal as I'm a United fan. Obviously, we've got the rivalry there. I just don't want to see Arsenal win anything this year. I think it'd just be banter, banter, banter if, they were not to win. They're out of the FA Cup, losing to Southampton, embarrassing that, losing to a championship club who look like they might not make it to the playoffs. Um, and then they have, losing to City in the Carabao Cup final. So that's two trophies gone. The Champions League, if they were to get through, I think they probably could get through. If they do get through, then they're against Barcelona or Atletico, and I don't think they're good enough to beat any of those sides. So it's one of those situations. What will actually happen, and it should be very interesting um, to observe all this weekend. So now if we predict the six games, the games here. So tonight, obviously, as you guys can see, we've got Sporting versus Arsenal, and Sporting being at home, battering Bodo Glimt 5-0 last time to get through into the into the quarterfinal, should I say. With this game, I think, Arsenal, if we're being honest with ourselves, Arsenal will probably win the game and the tie over two legs. I think it's going to be a close affair, and I'm going to go with a 2-1 win to Arsenal there. And then we move on to Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich. What will happen in this game? Wow, this is a huge game to predict. I think if you're looking from a Real's perspective, they've got Mbappe back, they've got Jude back, See, we know Rodrigo's out with this ACL injury. The left back who used to play for United, Alvaro Alcaraz or something, I can't pronounce his name to save my life. He is out as well, probably till the end of the season. However, it's Real Madrid in the Champions League. I think we were all saying that Madrid won't make it past City, and they clearly did, and they won convincingly. So I think you can't write out a possible Madrid win or a Bayern win. I think Bayern, you look at the teams, the players that they've got. Elise looks like the real deal, and I think it is. Harry Kane in his form of his life. They've got Kimmich in the midfield. The defenders are class up in Meccano, and who else is their defender? Kim J. They have Tar as well, who they bought from Bayer Leverkusen. So it's quite a what will it's very hard to predict. But my gut feeling is that Real Madrid will get the upper hand in the first leg, and I think they will win 2-1 as well. And then we move on to tomorrow's night action. Barca versus Atletico at the Camp Nou first. What would happen here? It's one of those games, as I said before. Either side could win the game. Personally, I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to have to go with a Barca win. I think it's probably obvious, and actually no, I'm not going to go 2-1. I'm going to go three. Oh, what am I doing here? I don't want to do that. I'm going to go with a 3-2 win for Barcelona, and then PSG versus Liverpool. This is only going to go one way for me, considering um, the way that Liverpool performed against City and just how poor they have been recently under Arne Slot. I don't think he's the right man. A lot of Liverpool fans want him out, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Xavi Alonso in at the end of the season. So I'm going to go with a 4-1 win to PSG in the first legs. It will all be very interesting, won't it? Because you know, let's say Madrid were to win comfortably again. When they go to the Allianz in Bayern, well, in Munich, should I say? You know, they have to just make sure they don't concede loads of goals. And well, it sounds quite easy, doesn't it? When I put it like that. But I think that game tonight is going to be the best game to watch. I think a lot of people will probably watch the Arsenal game because it's all hate watch, and United fans will be like they want to see him crumble. City fans as well, and let's just flip it onto Arsenal again. If they do get out of the Champions League and do lose to Sporting Lisbon after next weekend, what does this mean for the Premier League now? And I generally do believe I think City will catch them in the Premier League title because they win the game in hand, they beat them at the Etihad, and then I just see Arsenal slipping up. Arsenal slip up at stupid games like some of the games they have left. Let's get their fixtures up now so you guys can see it as well. Um, that Bournemouth at home, that that is one of the games where Bournemouth do turn up, and as you can see I'll move it across like that so you guys can see. As you can see, Bournemouth is one of those games where they could turn up and they could get a draw. If that happens, City beat them, and then Newcastle aren't the best of sides, but they've got nothing else to play for, so they'll probably turn it up now. Fulham always perform well, and West Ham's a game where you know they're in a relegation battle and they need points, and West Ham tend to turn up against Arsenal. In the past few seasons, they have been, and there's a couple of games there where you're like, the Bournemouth, if they drop points there, they lose to City. Newcastle give them give them a run for their money, and West Ham nick something off them. Then I think City have got the upper hand, and we will also show you City's fixtures as well. So it's not just biased towards Arsenal. I think to be fair, City as well, they've got some difficult fixtures there. Chelsea away. However, I don't think Chelsea aren't the best of sides. I think Chelsea will crumble there and City win there. I think they beat Arsenal. Burnley away. It's an easy win there. Everton aren't the best. Well, they're in Everton and Brentford are the probably hard games there because they're both chasing European football and anything can happen with them. However, I do see them winning a lot of their games that they have remaining. So, in terms of Um, obviously, that if they were to lose the Champions League, get out there, and I think mentally they'll be like they need to put everything on there, and the pressure just mounts on them again. And I think they probably bottle the Premier League. Obviously, that's an ideal world for United fans and for Tottenham fans especially, because they're looking likely they're going to go down, despite them getting Roberto De Zerbi in a couple of weeks ago, which I think is a fantastic appointment. I think he's a great manager. But back to the Champions League. It will be a very entertaining couple of days of football. We do also have Europa League and Europa Conference League football games. Villa and Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace are all in the quarterfinals there, so it'd be good to see those teams progress through. English teams winning European cups, brilliant for the country. But back to Champions League. I think it'll be a great evening of football. Anything can happen, and we'll do a match reaction after, or the Champions League midweek reaction after tomorrow's fixtures get played, and we'll look towards the second legs. But thank you everyone for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video, and share to all your family and friends. Catch you all in a bit.